Frontline Updates, where we delve deep into military strategies and updates from conflict zones. Today, we're discussing the progress of the ongoing special military operation as of today. I'm your host, Sharifa Mohammed MGT.
I'm Colonel A.C. Oguntoye, an infantry officer. Russian forces sustained pressure across all sectors on September 22nd, combining ground assaults with precision strikes against Ukraine's defense industry, logistics nodes, and command systems. The day saw the liberation of Kalinovskoe in the Dnipro region, continued attritional fighting in Donetsk, and significant air defense activity against drones and guided munitions.
Welcome to Frontline Updates, the podcast that brings you in-depth insights into military operations from those leading them on the ground. Today, we're joined by Colonel A.C. Oguntoye, an infantry officer monitoring critical missions on the progress of the special military operation as of today. Colonel Oguntoye, thank you for being with us.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Colonel Oguntoye, could you begin by giving us an overview of what unfolded on September 22nd?
The 22nd of September reflected a deliberate combination of positional advances, attritional engagements, and strategic strikes. Russian forces pressed across all operational sectors while also targeting Ukraine's aviation industry and UAV infrastructure. The highlight of the day was the liberation of Kalinovskoe in the Dnipro region, which represents another step in dismantling Ukrainian depth defenses. At the same time, the attrition in the center sector was particularly severe for Ukrainian forces, with over 550 casualties recorded. Across the battle space, we saw a consistent pattern: destruction of depots, electronic warfare assets, and Western-supplied systems. These actions serve both tactical goals, weakening brigades in contact, and strategic aims, which are about degrading Ukraine's ability to sustain the fight.
Let's take this sector by sector. Starting in the north, what actions took place in Sumy and Kharkiv?
In the north, Russian forces engaged mechanized and airborne brigades in settlements such as Alexivka, Verakino, and Volchansk. The enemy lost around 190 personnel, alongside a tank, artillery systems, and multiple vehicles. Importantly, 3 supply depots were also destroyed. From a doctrinal standpoint, this is less about immediate territorial conquest and more about shaping. By degrading artillery, vehicles, and depots, Russian forces are removing Ukraine's ability to project power forward in this sector. Destroying supply hubs forces Ukrainian brigades to extend their logistical tails, which increases vulnerability to subsequent strikes.
In the west, the reports noted the elimination of a U.S.-made counter-battery radar. Why is that important?
The West grouping struck mechanized and assault brigades near Kupiansk and Yampol, inflicting roughly 240 casualties. The key event here was the destruction of a U.S.-made and /TPQ-36 counter-battery radar. These systems are crucial because they allow Ukraine to detect Russian artillery fire and retaliate quickly. Once such systems are neutralized, Ukrainian artillery becomes reactive rather than proactive. Additionally, 10 electronic warfare stations and 4 depots were destroyed. Taken together, this means Ukrainian units in this sector have reduced ability to shield themselves electronically, diminished ability to track Russian fires, and fewer resources to resupply. This creates favorable conditions for future Russian maneuver.
The south has seen consistent fighting in Donetsk. What was achieved there on the 22nd?
In the south, Russian forces engaged 6 Ukrainian brigades, including mechanized, motorized infantry, and assault formations around Seversk, Berstok, and Konstantinovka. Ukrainian losses totaled over 200 personnel, 3 armored vehicles, 9 cars, and several artillery guns. Equally significant was the destruction of 2 electronic warfare systems, an ammunition depot, and a fuel depot. Fuel is the lifeblood of mechanized warfare. When depots are destroyed, brigades can't rotate vehicles, artillery pieces sit immobile, and overall tempo slows. This is a textbook example of using logistics denial to create operational paralysis.
The center continues to be the focus of heavy fighting. What happened there on September 22nd?
The center sector is indeed absorbing the heaviest action. Russian troops engaged across Dnipro, Krasnoarmysk, and Moskovskoe. Ukrainian losses reached more than 550 men, 2 armored vehicles, including a U.S.-supplied M113 APC, and multiple smaller assets. This level of attrition signals a deliberate Russian attempt to fracture Ukraine's defensive belts in Donetsk. The destruction of NATO-supplied systems carries both material and psychological weight. Materially, it reduces combat effectiveness. Psychologically, it demonstrates that even advanced platforms cannot withstand sustained Russian pressure. The center is emerging as the decisive axis, where a breach could ripple across Ukraine's broader defensive network.
Let's shift to the east, specifically the liberation of Kalinovskoe. How significant is this gain?
The liberation of Kalinovskoe in the Dnipropetrovsk region is important because it represents a deepening of penetration into Ukraine's defensive depth. Russian units also struck brigades around Gavrilovka and Chervono, inflicting nearly 300 casualties. Several armored vehicles, artillery systems, and 2 EW stations were destroyed. Securing Kalinovskoe is less about the settlement itself and more about what it unlocks. Each liberated node pushes Ukrainian artillery further back, disrupts supply lines, and forces command elements to relocate. It is a cumulative process of squeezing Ukraine's defense-in-depth strategy until it becomes untenable.
Finally, what about the Dnipro grouping in Zaporizhzhia and Kherson?
In the Dnipro sector, Russian units struck mechanized and coastal defense brigades around Orkhov and Berislav. Ukrainian losses were lighter, around 50 men, but notable assets were eliminated, including a U.S.-made HMMWV, 5 EW stations, 2 depots, and a supply warehouse. This sector's role is to apply continuous pressure, preventing Ukraine from using its coastal and riverine brigades to reinforce other axes. By systematically destroying EW and supply assets, Russia is shaping this battle space for control rather than immediate territorial gain. It ties down Ukrainian manpower and resources, limiting their strategic flexibility.
Beyond the sectors, what supporting operations took place?
Operational aviation and artillery struck 147 targets, including a Ukrainian aviation industry enterprise, UAV storage and launch sites, and a foreign mercenary training center. These strikes are about denying Ukraine the ability to innovate or sustain its unmanned systems campaign. Air defense units were also very active, intercepting 7 guided bombs, 2 HIMARS rockets, and 339 drones. This underscores both the intensity of Ukraine's reliance on unmanned systems and Russia's continued ability to absorb and neutralize those attacks through layered defenses.
Colonel, thank you for providing such a detailed briefing on the current military situation. Your insights are invaluable to our understanding of the conflict's dynamics. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Join us next time as we continue to provide up-to-date coverage on global military affairs. Stay with us for more updates and expert analyses on global defense and security issues. Stay informed, stay secure.
Thank you for the opportunity. The September 22nd operations reinforce a pattern of deliberate, methodical warfare. At the tactical level, Russia is incrementally improving its positions while systematically dismantling Ukraine's depots, EW systems, and Western-supplied assets. The liberation of Kalinovskoe illustrates how positional gains, however modest, are tied to a broader strategy of squeezing Ukraine's defenses. Strategically, the focus on destroying radar, electronic warfare stations, and defense industrial enterprises signals a campaign aimed at eroding Ukraine's ability to sustain modern warfighting. The heavy attrition in the center suggests that this axis is being prepared for a decisive breakthrough. Ultimately, what we are witnessing is not rapid maneuver but strategic exhaustion, a war of industrial denial, attrition, and positional consolidation designed to shape the battlefield for eventual decisive operations.
This has been Frontline Updates. Subscribe for daily military briefings and in-depth strategic analysis. Visit our platform for maps, transcripts, and exclusive Frontline updates from commanders in theater.